Thanks for making time.
Thank you very much.
All right, now let's talk about the latest move by the Ministry of ICT, as well as in collaboration with the Kenyan Film Commission in terms of this particular script writing competition. What informed the decision to set it up?
First, let me start with the film sector.
All right.
Was recently moved back by the president to my ministry. And with its move, we took time to go around the country, talk with many of the stakeholders. We actually even went to Hollywood, went to Dubai, went to China, looked at many different aspects. I spent a lot of time in Nollywood when I was at Google, so I know about the online systems. You know, we visited Netflix. So went round and tried to assess what is it that we need to do as a country to be able to get many of the jobs that we need to for our young people. Because really this is about jobs and livelihoods. And as a result, one of the things that we identified is we have some of the best talent in the world. I mean, you've just shown Lupita there, who's one of the leading lights here in Kenya, and many, many more who have been doing the same. We have got many of our films that have actually been winning even in the Africa Awards and so on. So we've identified that we have talent. But even as we do this, the main issue has been distribution for many of the films that are produced is almost non-existent. Many countries, because of the new technologies that have come in, your TV at home it gives you better features than what you had in the movie theaters.
Definitely.
So the movie theaters never upgraded the way they were required to. And as a result, people continued to go home, and many of the theaters now are places of worship. But people have continued to consume and use movies as a part of their entertainment. You've got these small movie areas or places that people go to in the rural areas and even in the kiosk. And they pay like 20 shillings and they are able to watch all these movies. Those have continued to grow. In fact, KFCB shows us those numbers are over 20,000 locations. So the demand and need for movies is there. Those movie theaters that have come up, that have upgraded, whether it's like the IMAX with 3D, and the few that have come in the country, they actually now are getting audience. Mm-hmm. And even though you can watch many of these movies on your phone, you can watch them at home on your laptop or on TV, actually people now are finding reasons to go. We found also that many of our local movies, they don't depict the true Kenya. They tend to depict mainly what seems to be the negative side of our culture, as opposed to what is our real culture. So it means we need to start with, can we find the right stories that can actually show who we are, what our culture is, that people will enjoy, people will actually go to the theaters for, and see if we can now take those in the country, make sure they're distributed well, distributed across Africa. And we found that even the Chinese market is a great market where we can get some of our movies to be shown. I mean, they have over 1 billion moviegoers. Mm-hmm. So it's a huge market. The US also has a huge market, but this is a place where we can start. So we want to create this competition. It will allow people to get the opportunity to test their skills. This competition will give us scripts that we can now be able to use. And just to be clear, these scripts, you'll copyright them. The competitors will own the copyright of the scripts. So the winners are the ones now we will work with on seeing how we will now develop the films. But the idea would be we have now films that are not only good for Kenya, but good for Africa and the world. And therefore, the quality needs to be very high. The storylines, we've left it open so that they can tell us what is the best kind of movie. We're very optimistic that we're going to find some really good stories that we can now expose to many of the investors who want to actually get into this space. And if we can get our deal and partnership with China in place where you can actually have co-production and the movies are then being shown in China.
Yes.
If you have 400 million people watching out of the 1.2 billion they have,
yeah.
That's almost 10 times the Kenyan population. So
Definitely.
there's no reason not to do that. So that's what we're trying to do, and that's what's driven us to here.
Well, that's very true. And it's undoubted that, talent is quite available in Kenya, and you've mentioned it. But in terms of well thought out policies and legislations, I mean, we've just had the story by David Mbidi, the fact that, our thing that did happen in Kenya is shot later on in South Africa, about 5,000 miles away. What can we do to ensure that, yes, we do have this talent, but it is nurtured at a very young age, and we are able to actually make it Kenyan and not, it doesn't go to other countries as well?
That I agree 100%. I think one of the things we've identified, we have a film school, but one of the challenges we have as a country, and I think where the rain started beating us for this sector, is when we stopped things like theatre and art in school as part of the activities that would be there, so that now people have to go to either private schools or go out. So we're talking with the Ministry of Education to look at how we can reignite and reintroduce the movie and film within schools, within the universities, because that is actually quite important. At the same time, the policies that exist are dated. We've have actually a revamped policy. But what we've also said is that for any of the movies and anybody who wants to come, these incentives don't have to be given blanket. You can come and bring your ideas and present them to us, and we'll actually review each one. And we'll take the hassle of going even to Treasury to make sure that the incentives that are required are given to each of those movies, even as we wait for the process of getting the policies in place, getting the reviews in terms of taxation and so on, through Parliament, through Cabinet. So all that we are working very hard on. The President is keeping us on our toes, because this is an area that he feels very passionate about. He wants to make sure that, one, tourism continues to grow for this country. I think we have some of the best numbers now in terms of tourism. And when you look at movies, they bring our culture out. They bring, obviously, the scenery, what this country is about. And by the way, when we talk to many people across the world, we have the best sun, the best lighting. Being at the equator, we have almost the best in terms of, then the scenery, snow-capped mountains, you got savannas, and then some of the best people in the world, from nomadic all the way to, the urban centers. So a great country.
Yeah, very great. But now, in terms of sustainability in the film industry, I know you've mentioned that you're actually hustling to make sure that that is streamlined. But I'm speaking from, let's take a look from an actor's point of view.
Right.
In terms of revenue, the law of demand and supply, yes, the uptake of local film is on the rise. But is it really sustainable to the fact that, yes, I am a filmmaker, and yes, I will make a film, but will it be able to put food on my table and actually take care of other basic commodities and also do extra for me as a filmmaker, so that I don't digress into something else, yet this is my particular talent? What should the ministry be thinking about, or what are you thinking about in terms of making this particular, film industry sustainable for all the talents we have under that particular bracket?
So as a ministry, other than building the infrastructure, which we are required to do, whether it is the fiber optic that we're putting in place, making sure we have 4G, even 5G networks in place available, making sure we have access to devices. We are also responsible for the licensing, for broadcasting, for film, all those things.
Yeah.
Other than that, job creation is one of our key mandates and objectives. We want to make sure that people have not just basic incomes. We want them to be able to have gainful employment, which they enjoy. So one of the key trends, if you look at movies, is that actually they are going online. They're going into streaming services. Sense8, which was filmed even here in Kibera, that's on Netflix, and many others are coming in. So we're putting in infrastructure that allows companies like Netflix, YouTube is already here, and many others, including the Viewsasa platforms that are now local. So we're creating content platforms, places like Konza, where we're building the data centers to host and be able to facilitate. We are also working closely with the AG's office and the copyright board to make sure that people are able to copyright their talent and their innovations, their movies, even their music. And we are looking at how, even with the Communications Authority, when you have either produced a movie or even music, when you are required to be paid, whether it's been shown in many of the broadcast stations, radio stations, and so on, you will actually get paid. And we're going to ensure that is happening.
Will that deal with piracy? the piracy?
It will partly deal with piracy. What the producers need to do also is ensure that they have their content ID. Because if you don't put content ID, it's very hard for to police the whole system. So we're asking on looking at content ID that will help in terms of managing the piracy and the various technologies that we need, so that when you now start broadcasting, you can almost be paid automatically. You don't have to be the one who keeps following. So at the same time, we have identified a loophole where movies or advertisements that are produced here, they have to pay taxes. Whether it's PAYE or corporation tax, they have to do all that. So what some people have been doing is that instead of doing the movies and advertisements here in Kenya, they go outside of the country, they get them all done tax-free, they bring them in, they pay only for the flash disc or the DVD that they come in with, which is almost nothing.
Yes.
And then they air it and make a lot of money. And there are a lot of soaps and other things that come in more or less in the same way. So we are also considering putting in an airing tax, which will allow that the local productions also get recognized and actually are able to compete. Because right now their cost is cut by all these international productions that are not paying any of the taxes, and therefore we're losing our jobs and exporting them out. So all these are things that we're looking at that we want to make changes in.
All right. Now, in terms of actually showing the true picture of, let's say, Kenya and the African culture as well, yes, we have the collaboration and you're working towards bringing on board China to actually make sure that Kenyan films get proper viewership, not just in Africa, but in China, in Asia, and other continents as well.
Right.
But in terms of what I see, perhaps African culture at times takes the back seat in terms of westernization. Yes, we did have Black Panther coming out, but in terms of the true African culture, yes, we did see the Kikois, and yes, we did see a little bit of African culture, but it was really westernized. In terms of holding on to the true roots of African culture and showing the positivity of Kenya, what we have as a country, what are you doing to make sure that our image outside there is positively displayed, not just in terms of marketing us, but in terms of showing our true nature?
So there are many things going on. So first of all, our top ambassador on who Kenya is our president.
Yes.
And our president has done an amazing job traveling around the world, selling Kenya, and many tourists have actually come. And if you talk to the tourism sector today, you'll understand that Kenya now is well appreciated out there. He has made sure that all of us also continue to sell Kenya. If you look at the Ministry of Tourism with Brand Kenya, they're always out there making sure that they're selling our country, the values and cultures. And when people come and visit, if you remember, 2017, 2016, we had so many heads of state come and visit Kenya. And they came out of there, and many have actually come back privately to come and experience Kenya even more. Whether they've gone to the coast or they've gone even north, they've really, I would say Kenya has really been sold. And as a people, we have also been, we have a good, I would say warm and welcoming culture. But what we want to do with film is that we want to capture that. If you look at many of the I would say big shows that we've done, many of them haven't been capturing. I would say Subira and a few of the new ones that have come in have not shown just negative parts of Kenya.
Definitely.
Some others that came before, and I probably don't want to mention them, but they really were showing gangsters. They were showing things that are not really, what we are as Kenya. And so we want to preserve our culture. We want to maintain that culture. And even more importantly, our language. Because language is extremely important, and we don't want to lose that. And so with this film competition, the script, we expect that we're going to now see people bring out the true Kenya, the true things that we want, get those funded. Now those will be probably shown through Viusasa, through the broadcasting platforms that we have, Netflix and so many others. So as government, we're putting in place teams to make sure we're working closely with the Netflix and many such streaming companies to be able to make sure that Kenyan productions are there. As I've mentioned, working closely with China so that you can access over 60,000 movie theaters, over 1 billion moviegoers. With Smart Africa, we have over 600 million people We're trying to create a single digital market. Right now, 24 African countries have signed up. And if we get this right, our heads of state are meeting next week in the AU to discuss, the continental free trade area.
Yes.
That will even give us a bigger market. And as Kenya, we want to be at the heart of that and to grow that. And with all the infrastructure we've put in place, I believe we can do very well.
All right. As we conclude, now, in terms of enabling, in terms of creating an enabling environment for foreigners to actually shoot their movies in Kenya, which will definitely bring in revenue for the government and also boost the film industry in Kenya. What are we doing? Because I'll still take you back to that particular film about Queen Elizabeth, and it was taken to South Africa. And what they actually said is about the levies that are in Kenya, which are not so enabling as compared to South Africa. Now, how do we tackle that?
So it wasn't entirely just the levies. I think, there was the infrastructure. You find that even in South Africa, a lot of the crew that they have there are Kenyans who have come from here and they're out there. So what we're doing here is, first of all, we've given attention to film. We're here today talking film because it's an important part of the president's legacy. We want to make sure that we use that. So one, it has attention. Two, when people like that, investors like that come to the country, we meet with them and we'll actually listen and work with them and ensure they have what they're looking for. At the moment, the process of getting those levies out or giving them the incentives that were there took too long and the attention was not given. Right now we are open. We've actually gone out. We've met many of them. And they are even coming. In the next month or so, there are a few that are going to be here just to scout and see what's going on. So we have opened the country, and we've agreed with them. They come and they say, this is what we want. We will work out. If it's the best deal, we'll provide that for them. So we don't have to give a blanket, 20% incentive. You come and we'll negotiate an incentive that works for you or works for us.
Yes.
You've got things like Lion King, which were based here. Even, Black Panther. Wakanda is based here.
Hey,
all these things are here. So,
yes.
So we're negotiating with all these people to come and do these things. And I don't want to spook the conversations that we're having. Yeah. But we are at the beginning of making sure we revive the sector. We've had many meetings with the industry. And the industry has given us their feedback. We're implementing what they're saying and also inputting from out there. So the support we're getting is not only from China. We have Korea. There are many things that we're working with them within Konza City and obviously with Hollywood. There's a lot that we are engaging with. That all combined, I believe is going to really transform this sector. And we can have reviews on a quarterly basis, and you will be seeing how we're making progress.
Definitely, and I think the fact that screenwriting competition is a building stone for all these collaborations and partnerships that will get to revamp the film industry in Kenya. Many thanks, John Musheru, Asante Sana, and all the best in actually pushing for the film industry in Kenya.
Great,
all
Asante.
Right.